Welcome to the Passion Project Revolution, where we explore the highs and lows of creating passion projects. Whether it is a book you have a desire to write, a community service you want to create, a charity you want to set up, or sharing your own passions by teaching others how to do it, be inspired by the stories from people who have been there and done it. You know, everyone has at least one passion project, if not more, within them. It's held within their soul energy. And if, after listening to today's podcast, you want to discover what passion projects lie within your soul, then I invite you to download the Soul Creation Collage Workshop for free and start unlocking the potential within you. You'll find the link in the information section. But for now, sit back and enjoy this inspiring installment of the Passion Project Revolution. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Passion Project Revolution podcast. And I'm really delighted to invite my guest today, Catherine Edsell, who is Global Expedition Leader, conservationist and advocate for women in the outdoors. And she's also the creator of the Matriarch adventures that have been going since 2017. So before we get started into talking about the highs and the lows of creating a passion project, Catherine, could you tell us a little bit more about the Matriarch adventures?
So the Matriarch adventure is a 10-day expedition where women can really step into the wild. I chose Namibia as a place to go because I have a history with it, which I might talk about in a minute, but it's a beautiful country. It's vast, it's expansive. If there's anything you need to let go of in your life or move through in your life, this is a perfect place to do it because there's nobody around. It's one of the least populated countries in the whole world. So the Matriarch adventure is a real expedition in so many levels, so it's for the women who come on it primarily, to really explore their own selves and to move through stuff that's stuck, to just really put themselves into, strip back to basics. There's nothing, you don't take your phones, there's no running water, you're really going back to just yourself, your human form in this environment. But also at the same time, we're doing conservation work with a local NGO that I've worked with for many years. So you get to meet desert elephants in their natural environment in the wilderness, which is incredible because that doesn't happen very often in our life now. It's all very curated. So to have that experience where you're meeting wild elephant herds and also collecting data on them, monitoring their well-being, you're learning about the conservation of these animals that, you probably haven't really thought about more than the fact that they're an enigmatic species, which you have some kind of relationship with, but also the matriarchal society of an elephant herd is something which is incredible to be able to absorb and to watch and to really see how these elephants support each other as we not should, but in our best societies we will also support each other. It's a multifaceted expedition.
Yeah. It sounds absolutely amazing, and and I know that I've had experiences where I've been out in the elements on my own, sort of having to fend for myself without mobile phones and things like that, and it's really quite amazing how you're able to tap into a part of yourself that it kind of gets hidden or squashed or drowned out by the noise of everyday life. So I love the idea of that women sort of coming together in an environment where they're with themselves, but they're also observing and taking part in conservationist activities with the elephants in the most beautiful part of the world, which is unspoilt by westernization. So how did the idea for the Matriarch adventure first come about?
It was because I've always led expeditions, so around the world. I've worked with different companies, spent many months, years away from England in different environments. And I love that kind of life. Again, for that rawness, the fact that you're uncontactable sometimes and you're living in that little world, which is self-sufficient. And that's something which I love. And when I had kids, obviously that changed everything. That was a tricky time for me to sort of to come to terms with that new role that I had, and also the limitations that I then had being married and in a house in London. That was all very different. But I carried on trying to forge my way through and doing little expeditions when I could, taking the kids with me when I could, just trying to keep that side of, as my job ultimately. So keeping my work and my life going. And then, there was other women in the playground going, oh, you're so lucky you get to go on all these trips and expeditions and have a great time. And I was thinking, well, it's not really lucky, but, I can see that it would be really beneficial. So why don't I create an adventure just for women? And it actually started primarily for mums because that was my group. So it was like, well, why don't we do this together? And very quickly, there was a group of women going, I'll come, let's count me in. So that was it. So the first one came from just an idea in the playground of like, how can I get more of my friends who had obviously sometimes relinquished a bit of their own life, as you do when you're a parent, maybe given up work or changed work or whatever. You're compromising yourself on some level. Of course, children are amazing and they give so much back, but there's also that, what about me, somewhere inside that. So that's how it started. It was just that sort of reaction.
And so how many of these adventures do you run each year?
It depends. So now it's expanded. So it isn't just for mums. I mean, a lot of mums come, but it's also for anyone, any woman who really wants to have an adventure. Sometimes it's actually older women whose children left, they've gone to university or to work or left home. And then they're suddenly like, oh, well, what about me now? I've given all of my life to supporting this family and they're gone. And it's not a very long time. That's the thing. It's only 10 days. So I've done. And then there's any woman who wants to go on an adventure. So there's people who have, they're coming to that thing where they worked really hard, they're in their mid-30s, worked really hard, and it's like, okay, well, do I want to carry on working really hard? Do I want to do something different? What do I want to do? So it's open to everyone. And I've led, I think 7, 8 now. I also work with other organizations. There's a great organization called Love Her Wild, which is by a friend of mine, and that's a big Facebook platform, again, encouraging women to go into the outdoors. So I run specific ones for her and her groups. I run it there's another wonderful group called Maverick Mums, based in Somerset. So I do ones that are sort of just make adventures for anyone globally, and then there's these little ones, not the same actually, but there's other ones that I run for different communities.
Amazing. And how do you find that fits in with your role as a mum? How do you manage to sort of navigate that?
It's not very long. So the idea that I try and span it over, so there's 2 weekends and a week, and then a few more days, like, so you have to fly on a Thursday, and so it's kind of, but in your head you can say to your partner or to whoever's going to help you look after the kids or whatever it is, your work, it's just really a week with 2 weekends and a little bit more. And so it becomes very manageable. And obviously you have to put a lot of things in place. You have, if your kids are small, you have to do a massive list of who's going to look after them and take them to wherever. When they're older, then, they can fend them for themselves. Obviously partners need to know that you're not just running off and leaving them. So it's very much about, it's not a massive thing, but it's really huge in another way, because you can because we're on if you're coming from the UK, there's no time difference because you're going straight down. Brilliant. But so you can go and get really quickly. So within a couple of days you're in the middle of absolutely nowhere, and having that experience with no contact to the outside world. I mean, obviously we have satellite phones and emergency features in place, but to your purposes you're away and then you come back. So it's okay to manage, and that's what I try to say to them. It's only a week, really. Just give yourself that time.
Because I would have thought that that's one of the biggest obstacles for women is, well, how can I manage this? How can I manage the logistics of the childcare and this? And quite often it's that you've got into that space where you feel like you're solely responsible for everything and everyone, and it's okay to let go of the reins and let someone else take control, as it were.
And I think, you do have to have a plan, but
Yeah.
women are very good at planning, generally. So it's just putting your energies into a bit of preparation. And once that's done, and you can relax and say, okay, well, Granny's going to do this, the next door neighbour's going to do this, they sleep over that night. It's hard, but it's worth it. It's really worth doing that little bit of organisation and just saying, yeah, this is my time.
Yeah. And what sort of transformations do you observe amongst the women that go on these adventures?
It's very personal. I think, it's huge transformations actually, and they resonate for a long time. I think there could be people going through stuff that, again, it just gives them a window of space to actually take stock where they're at, and then come back and make some sometimes quite dramatic changes. But there's other, I think just getting in touch with yourself, it gives you that real insight into who you were, and that joy and that connection that you had with other women, maybe, or with animals. It transforms you because you've put yourself into an extreme environment, and you've also realized that actually a lot of the stuff that we worry about and we're concerned with is so not important. And to get back to that sort of truth and that sort of that singularity, that real point of reference, that you understand that, okay, yeah, this is me, and I don't need all of I don't need to be on Instagram. I don't need a million coffee mornings. I don't need all this stuff. And I can survive just in a little mosquito net in the middle of the desert, and with boots and wet wipes, and that's all I need. And it's transformative in that sense, that you really read something about it.
So talking about sort of social media and we don't need it and things, I'm just curious to understand how did you go about promoting your adventures, and did you what was the progress like for that in terms of?
The first one was very, very quick. So I had the idea, I think the idea was sort of December time, and then we were there in March. So it was really quick. It was one of those things, it was like, and I wrote emails to all my friends. Was there Facebook? I think at the beginning there probably wasn't even Facebook, because I didn't really know how to post on Facebook. I'm a bit of a social media, what's the word? The opposite of native, Philistine or something. But I'm not a native. So it's not comfortable to me in that domain so much. It's very much word of mouth now. So people hear about it. I gave a TED talk. This was really lucky. So I had I'd always loved TED Talks. I just, I love watching them for inspiration when I was feeling like, I don't know what to do with my life. Let's watch TED Talk. And then I just said to a friend, I'd love to do a TED Talk. And then when I was thinking about the Matriarch adventure, I hadn't even gone on it yet. I just thought, I'm going to apply. So I just wrote off to TEDx London. So I thought, well, I don't want to go to Manchester or New Orleans. I don't have any connection with there. So where is, there's one in London, right to them. Wrote a little proposal, went on expedition, came back, and they said, oh yeah, we'd love you to give a talk. And I was like, oh, really? Okay. I said, can you send in a draft? So I wrote a draft and sent it off. They're like, that's perfect, great. And I was like, oh God, now I've got to actually do it. And that was another adventure in itself. But so having a TED Talk, I think, really helped, because then I didn't have to continually resell who I was. Like, it's actually there, exists, and it gives, it captures in time that was my idea, and that's what I did with it. So the theme of that particular TED conference was confidence. So, really talking about how women can go and do these quite extreme things to regain that confidence in themselves, to go out and put it into their everyday lives. So TEDx really helped. I do post a bit, but it's more just because there's a group of women out there who do follow social media. And so therefore, but there's also a massive group who don't. And that's been the challenge. Like, how do you get in touch with the women who don't really go down those mediums? Because actually they're the people I want to talk to as well. So I write articles for magazines, newspapers, podcasts like this, really useful, because it means that you get a different audience who wouldn't necessarily go through those social media channels.
That's really helpful to understand, because I think sometimes when people are setting up their own projects, and if you're starting out and you've never done anything like this before, and maybe you've been, in a corporate 9 to 5, and then suddenly you kind of do a bit of research. Well, how do I promote and market? And then you'll get bombarded with, well, you need to be posting on social media every single day and doing this, and that it can get really daunting. And I think you're the second person that I have spoken to recently who's like, no, I'd do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And because what works, particularly with passion projects, is when you do promote, whether it's on social media, or whether it's through an article, or whether it's through a TED talk, because your passion just it shines through, and that's what is attractive, and that's what attracts people to join your project, because of the passion that you are flowing in it,
No.
and so it doesn't, so therefore it means like you don't have to kind of post 3 things every single day and spend your whole life marketing.
I don't follow that algorithm. I mean, Facebook wants to spare of me. I'll do like a couple of posts and then forget about it for 2 months, and then
I mean,
speaking gigs in like festivals and talks. I don't really enjoy public speaking. It's not something I feel very comfortable about. The TED, like I said, was very challenging in that respect, but it is something I can do, so I can do that too.
What do you think has been your greatest lesson in creating this passion project?
I think it's got to be driven by, well, for me, it was actually trusting that I could pull it off. I'm an expedition leader, so it's very skills based. It's very, there's risk assessments, there's, all of this. So it's very safe. But just knowing that ultimately then you're responsible for everybody, but trusting that you can hold that space. And I think that's really developed me as a leader. I mean, I don't like the word leader anyway, because I don't lead from the front. I'm actually one of those matriarchs who'll be at the back of the herd and just waiting, just watching, and just holding that space for people. And I think the more I've done it, the more I've learned these subtle ways from the elephants themselves, that to hold a community, you're not a dictator. Dictators don't hold communities. They have a regime. So it's the opposite of that. It's actually, using all the wealth and the knowledge and the expertise and the lives of all the women that come are so rich, so just finding a way to hold that space so that everybody grows from each other, as well as just, going on a tour. It's so not a tour. It's so not. And I think that's the hard thing to try and communicate sometimes, because people are like, oh, I want to go and I want to see elephants. And it's like, well, what do you really want? Because if you want to go see elephants, you can go on a safari, and you'll see more probably. But if you want to actually exist in the wilderness and actually let nature talk to you, then you need to, this is an expedition, this is an adventure, a retreat almost, some would call it. It's a very different space, and that's again, it's trying to find the words to encapsulate that. So
so when you're talking about it, I can feel all of my kind of body like spark up, and it's like, I want to go. I really want to go, because I am the sort of person that craves adventure. I like being in the thick of things, being part of nature. I've always wanted to go to Africa, but it's like, I'm not interested in a safari where you're carted from one place to another and you're in hotels and things like that. It's like, I want to experience what it's like in the wild. It's going to appeal to quite a niche market, I think, but also it's fine, because there's lots of safaris where other people can go on.
Exactly. Loads of 5-star stuff. If you want 5-star stuff, then there's loads of it. And I've nothing wrong with a 5-star hotel. I love it too. And we do benchmark the Matriarch adventure. So the first night and the last night is in a nice place. So you have a bit of pamper, you have a bit of luxury, and that's also quite nice to go completely away from it and then come back to it. And it's like, okay. And then I remember the first time I came back into the hotel, and I was like, I can't even put my bag down. It's so dirty. Like this place is so clean. And like having a shower and watching sort of the rivulets of sand like running off you.
Yeah.
It's just, and then, but you know, soon you slip back into it. So you haven't, you know, it's not that you can't do these things. It's just really nice to be in a completely different space sometimes.
And I think it, you know, it really does help you to appreciate that what you have is a luxury. You know, how you live your life is actually, it's luxury. We take it for granted, don't we?
Water. The fact that you know, carry all the water in big tanks on our vehicles, just that we carry with us the whole time. So it's limited. I mean, we have enough for water, drinking, and cooking, you know, that's, and washing up, obviously, because you've got to keep clean. But as far and hand washing, but there's no hair washing, no body washing, you know, and you just realize that, you know, the drinking water that you have is so valuable, you know, and it's keeping you alive out there.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So let's talk a bit more about practicalities of, you know, setting up your passion project. Were there any sort of upfront funding costs for you in setting up this project?
Not really, in the sense that, I mean, apart from having a website that I needed to create, and I did that myself because I didn't, you know, again, I didn't want to pay lots of money for someone to do it. And also I think having autonomy on the things that you produce is quite useful. There was, because it was a self-funded thing, so, you know, women would pay to come, and that would cover the cost of any costs that I had to pay for. At the beginning, I didn't make any money. Like it was no profit involved at all. I mean, now there is, because I spend a lot of time, you know, on it, so there is a bit of profit worked into the, but it's not really very much. I mean, it's still, it's not a business in any sense. Like, you know, it covers itself. There wasn't that much I had to invest because I had all the contacts out there. So I'd worked with Elephant Human Relations Aid, who work out there with the elephant community and the human population. That's their whole work, is just mediating between elephant and human conflict. And I had been in contact with them since 2002. I lost contact, but I recontacted them, and they were like, "Yeah, this sounds like a brilliant idea." So you know, I had everything set up there from a logistical point of view, and they provide all the staff that I need as well. So that's quite well. And again, so the women who come, they pay for supporting, and you know, half of what women pay goes directly to elephant conservation.
Beautiful. So, that's lovely. And it's because it's that, what's the word to use? But it's almost like that, it's a circle of love that goes around, you know. It's like, you know, they're getting love for themselves from going on the expedition, but what they're paying then goes back into the conservation and the you know, and being able to look after the elephants as well. So it's like that beautiful reciprocal relationship that happens. It's great. So what one piece of guidance would you offer to someone who was wanting to set up their own passion project, whatever it is?
I think get momentum. I think, you know, it really helped at the beginning having that short time span. Because I thought if I leave it until, because March was good, and then I wouldn't be able to go again until October. So there was like 2 windows, and I thought if I don't go in March, by October I would have put myself off the idea. And there would have been all these stumbling blocks that I would have found. And there were, you know, there was loads to deal with, because I had to work out how, because suddenly I was operating like a travel agent. I mean, I wasn't a travel agent, but it was that kind of thing. You're providing stuff, and it was a massive world that I had no idea how to navigate. But because I was like, okay, this is what I'm doing in the next 3 months, I put everything into it. So I had the momentum. And again, I was like, how am I going to find these women? You know, like, okay, a few of my friends can come, but they're not all my friends. And again, sort of, you know, just trusting that it was going to work. And I had at the beginning a wonderful friend of mine who was like right there with me, helping support me. And she was, you know, when I was doubting, she was like, it'll be all right, it'll be all right. So that was really lovely as well, just to have someone say, yeah, carry on, you're doing fine, you're doing fine. So either having a mentor or a friend or someone who's gonna, you know, because you will have doubts and you're like, oh, this is impossible, what am I thinking? You know, it was a stupid idea. You know, and all of that, which will go through your head, or it's far too difficult. So it's just really, really working with that, with that energy of flow. And I think if you get into that flow, then things happen.
I know I've experienced that myself. It's like, if I have an idea, I have to literally run with it. And, you know, when you run with the idea, it's like the idea builds in energy and momentum, and it just happens. Whereas if you're like, okay, I've got this idea, but maybe I'll do it next year, it's like,
Same actually for women who say they want to come on the adventure. Yeah. It's funny, if people say, oh, I'd really love to do this, I'm like, okay, well, how really? You know, do you really want to do it? And then, yeah, if you really want to do it, you need to do it and you need to commit to it. If you say, are you running it next year? Which again, at the beginning, I didn't know if I was, because it was a passion project. I didn't know if it was going to run again. And you see there's certain people who keep saying, oh, I'll do it next year, I'll do it next year. Yeah. And then they fall off and you never see them. But you know, at one point they really wanted to do it. So again, it's like, it's acting, you know, it doesn't have to be, it's like anything, you know, if you have something really resonates, just go with it, because that will actually serve you and you'll never regret it.
Yeah. When's your next Matriarch adventure then?
Well, I'm actually leading one in May, which is for the Maverick Mums group. So that's it in its entirety. And there's another one in October. October the 4th to the 13th. There's the next one I'm running.
Wow. And have you still got places available for them?
Places, yeah. So if you're interested, or anyone else is interested, you're very welcome.
So anyone who is interested, how do they get in touch with you?
So, I mean, I am on Facebook and Instagram, but I find that because I'm not on it very much, I tend to lose people in that world. So email is very good. So email address is info@cathadventure.com. I also have a website, cathadventure.com. So if you go onto the website, there's forms you can fill in, like saying you're interested, you can sign up, you know, so you can go via the website, there's a newsletter you can sign up to. Not that's very frequent, but you know, you're on my list then. But there's, so cathadventure.com info.
Okay. That's brilliant. And what I'll do is I'll also share a link to your TED Talk as well, because I'm sure many people will be really inspired by what you have to share on that. And although I'm sure it probably feels like it was a million years ago I actually did that.
I don't actually listen to it. You know how you don't like the sound of your own voice, but I mean, people, it's funny, again, it's like you think, oh, everyone must have heard that now. And I put it on social media like a couple of weeks ago, and people are like, oh, I've never actually listened to this. And it's only minutes, so you know it's still giving, so that's good.
So it's been absolutely a pleasure to talk with you today, and I really look forward to hearing more about your Matriarch adventures and staying in touch. And you know, I encourage anyone who has just had their passion lit up with a thought of going on one of these Matriarch adventures, I really encourage you to get in touch with Catherine, because places go very quickly, don't they?
Thank you so much. It's been really wonderful to talk about it. So
you're welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. Has this podcast sparked an interest to create your own passion project? Remember, everyone has at least one within them, something that they have a strong desire to create or deliver, not always for profit, but for the sheer love of it. Your soul was designed in this way to help you find fulfillment in community energy. Sadly, what happens to many people is they get so caught up in survival, they forget why they chose to become physical in this time and space. But when you discover what passion projects lie within your soul, it triggers a massive uplift and a flow to inspiring energy. Basically, it feels really good and exciting, and you'll feel the momentum to take action, to create your own passion project. So if you're ready to start, have a look at all the ways that I can support you at www.thejanejackson.com. And here's one final thought to leave you with. When you create your own passion project, you are sharing love with the world around you. And that energy of love comes back to you to generate more flows to good energy and ultimate happiness for all.